Welcome back to Kuma English Listening Hub. Today's episode explores a surprisingly simple idea that can make a city feel noticeably cooler: painting roofs white. If you've ever walked through a city during a heat wave, you know the feeling. The air seems thick. The pavement radiates heat long after sunset. Even the shade feels warm, like it's been stored in the buildings themselves. Now imagine looking down at the city from above. Instead of mostly dark rooftops, you see bright, reflective surfaces. It looks almost like a patchwork of light. That visual change can translate into a real, physical difference. This practice is often called cool roofing. The basic principle is straightforward. Light colors reflect more sunlight, while dark colors absorb more. When a roof absorbs sunlight, it heats up. That heat then transfers into the building and into the surrounding air. A reflective roof, by contrast, stays cooler and sends more solar energy back into the atmosphere, rather than turning it into heat at street level. Let's break down what's actually happening. Sunlight arrives as shortwave radiation. When it hits a surface, three things can happen. It can be reflected, absorbed, or transmitted. Roof materials are usually opaque, so transmission is minimal. That leaves reflection and absorption. Scientists measure a surface's reflectivity using a value called albedo. A high albedo surface reflects a large portion of incoming sunlight. Fresh snow has a very high albedo. New asphalt has a very low one. Traditional dark roofs, especially in dense neighborhoods, contribute to the urban heat island effect. That's the tendency for cities to be warmer than surrounding rural areas. It happens for several reasons. Fewer trees and less evaporative cooling, more heat, absorbing surfaces like concrete, and waste heat from air conditioners, vehicles, and industry. But roofs cover a lot of area. In many cities, rooftops can represent around a quarter of the built surface. So changing what happens on roofs can make a meaningful difference. A cool roof usually combines two properties. First, it reflects sunlight well. Second, it releases heat efficiently. That second part is called thermal emittance. Some materials might reflect sunlight decently, but if they hold on to heat, they can still stay warmer than expected. Good cool roof coatings are designed to do both: reflect and shed heat. Now, why would a city get involved? After all, roofs are private property. The answer is that heat is a public issue. During extreme heat events, emergency services get busier. Hospitals see more heat-related illness, and power demand spikes as people run air conditioners. That can strain the grid. And when the grid is strained, blackouts become more likely, which is especially dangerous in heat. So some local governments encourage cool roofs through building codes, rebates, or requirements for certain types of construction. For example, a city might require a minimum roof reflectance for new commercial buildings, or offer financial support for retrofitting older roofs with reflective coatings. But there's an important nuance. Cool roofs are not only about comfort, they are also about energy. If your roof stays cooler, your building often needs less air conditioning. That can reduce electricity bills and lower peak energy demand in summer. Peak demand matters because it's when the system is closest to its limits. If a city can shave the peak even slightly, it can avoid turning on expensive, high-emission backup power plants. At the same time, cool roofs are not a perfect solution for every climate. In colder regions, a darker roof can be beneficial in winter because it absorbs sunlight and may reduce heating needs. A reflective roof might slightly increase heating demand. So the ideal choice depends on local weather patterns, insulation quality, and how a building is used. This leads to a common question: do cool roofs help with global warming or only local heat? The honest answer is both, but in different ways and at different scales. Locally, the impact can be direct. If many roofs in a neighborhood become reflective, the average air temperature can drop, especially during the hottest parts of the day. That can make outdoor spaces more bearable and reduce heat stress. It can also make nights slightly cooler because less heat is stored in the building fabric during the day. Globally, the effect is more complicated. Reflecting sunlight back into space can reduce the amount of heat absorbed by the Earth system. That sounds like a climate benefit. However, the real global impact depends on how widespread the change is, how long coatings last, and how it interacts with clouds, pollution, and regional weather patterns. In other words, it's not a magic switch, but it can be one piece of a larger set of strategies. Let's talk about what cool roofs look like in practice. They're not always bright white paint, although that is one of the simplest options. In many cases, a cool roof is a specially formulated coating applied over an existing surface. There are also reflective membranes and shingles designed to look darker while still reflecting infrared radiation. This matters because, in some neighborhoods, residents don't want roofs that look glaringly white from the street, or they want to preserve a certain architectural style. And then there's maintenance. A roof that starts out highly reflective can become less effective if it gets dirty. Dust, soot, pollen, and general urban grime can reduce reflectance over time. That doesn't mean cool roofs stop working, but it does mean performance can gradually decline unless the roof is cleaned or recoated. One interesting element is timing. A roof replacement is already a major expense. So, programs often target moments when property owners are planning renovations anyway. If a roof is due for replacement, choosing a cool option can be a relatively small upgrade compared to the cost of the whole project. Cool roofs also interact with another city goal: increasing greenery. Some buildings choose green roofs, which are covered with plants. Green roofs cool buildings through shade and evapotranspiration, and they can help manage stormwater, but they are heavier, more complex, and more expensive to install. Cool roofs, by comparison, are usually simpler and cheaper, and they work well on large, flat commercial roofs. So which is better, cool roofs or green roofs? The answer depends on what you're trying to achieve. Cool roofs are excellent for reflecting sunlight and reducing cooling demand, especially in hot climates. Green roofs offer broader benefits, like habitat, rainwater management, and improved air quality, but they require more structural support and ongoing care. Now let's zoom in on the human side. Heat is not distributed equally in a city. Some neighborhoods have more trees, more parks, and less dense development. Others have wide roads, large parking lots, and fewer green spaces. Often, these hotter neighborhoods are also lower-income areas where residents may have less access to air conditioning or may avoid using it due to cost. Because of that, cool roof programs can become a matter of public health and equity. Some cities prioritize reflective roofing in schools, community centers, and public housing. The logic is that if you can reduce indoor temperatures in buildings where vulnerable people spend time, you can reduce the risk of heat-related illness. However, even good ideas can create trade-offs. If the city encourages reflective roofs but doesn't consider glare, certain buildings might reflect light into nearby windows, making homes uncomfortable or even creating safety issues for drivers. Designers can reduce this problem by choosing materials with high solar reflectance but low specular reflectance, meaning they reflect sunlight in a more scattered way, rather than like a mirror. There's also a question of measurement. How do you know if a cool roof policy is working? Researchers use satellite data to track surface temperatures, and they compare neighborhoods before and after interventions. Building owners can measure indoor temperature changes and energy use. But because weather changes year to year, you need careful data analysis to separate the effect of the roof from the effect of a cooler summer or a windy season. Another factor is the rebound effect. If people feel cooler indoors and save money on air conditioning, they might choose to cool more rooms or keep the air conditioning on longer. That could reduce the expected energy savings. This doesn't mean the technology fails. It simply shows that human behavior influences outcomes. So, if you're listening and wondering what all this means for you, here are a few practical takeaways. First, the color and material of a roof can change more than just the building's appearance. It can affect indoor comfort, electricity costs, and even neighborhood temperatures. Second, city-level policies often focus on roofs because they are a large, modifiable surface area. Third, the best solution depends on climate, building type, and social priorities. To end, consider this. When people talk about climate adaptation, they often imagine complex systems and high tech inventions. But sometimes adaptation is also about revisiting basic design choices and asking whether they still make sense under hotter conditions. A roof is just a roof until it becomes a tool for public comfort. Next time you walk through a city on a hot day, look up. You might start noticing the surfaces above you, dark, heat storing roofs or bright, reflective ones. And you'll know that those choices are not only about architecture, they're about how we live with heat. Thanks for listening to Kuma English Listening Hub. If you enjoyed this C1 level episode, try listening a second time and focus on the transitions and cause and effect phrases. See you in the next one.